Hello again. I'm Sonia DeBoer and I'm a behavior analyst, and this is my quick tips video on rules and rewards. So this is for families living with children with autism and for parents, any family members, and we're going to talk today about rules and rewards. Hopefully you've watched my introduction video so that this information can be valuable for you and you can use it. Today I have my computer here because I'm going to be showing some visuals of things. So I'll turn the computer around, and then what we're going to also do is we'll have a picture in there so that you can be sure to see, because it can be difficult sometimes to see from the camera to my computer. But this way we can make them in sync with the pictures that we put into the video. Okay? All right. So my number one motto is something that you will always hear me talking about. Well, I have two really. One is that everything that we set out to do with kids with autism is to be proactive and preventative. And that means proactive is that we set the child up for success by always teaching them what they need to know, teaching them the skills, teaching them the rules about behavior, teaching them the actual appropriate behavior. We don't assume wrongly that they already have the knowledge of what they need to do or that they know how to do things, but that we set them up for success by teaching them what they need to know. And also that we set them up for success by changing things in the environment, setting things up in the environment before any behaviors can occur to hopefully change behaviors, inappropriate behaviors. Before they even occur, we can try to be proactive to change them to behave appropriately, which leads into being preventative, and that is all of the stuff about being proactive means we can hopefully prevent inappropriate behaviors and stop them from happening in the first place. Okay? So today, rules and rewards is kind of both. We're setting up systems in the home so that the child understands how they're supposed to behave in different locations during different activities, and then also hopefully prevent them from behaving inappropriately. So we're going to talk about teaching rules to kids with autism and then how you reward them for following those rules. Okay? All right. So one of the things that we kind of can set up is looking at and talking about teaching the rules and then rewarding the behavior for following the rules. So always think about the fact that you are going to teach rules. You're not just going to get upset with them when they don't behave appropriately and how you expect them to behave appropriately in a given environment unless you've actually taught them the rules for being in that environment. As I talked about in my first introduction video, one of the most difficult skills for kids with autism is observational learning. They don't typically just learn by watching other things, watching their siblings, watching other people, and learn how to behave appropriately. We actually need to teach that skill. Okay? So the thing is that you would teach them the rules for different activities that they're going to do, like bath time or grocery shopping. You're going to teach them about individual behavior that they need to engage in, like when they are eating at a table or when they're cleaning up or when they're washing their hands. You're going to teach them about what it means when they engage in like a whole family activity. So when you're all going to sit down and eat dinner, or when you're going to watch a movie, or you're going to play a game, what that means. And then also what we call small group. So when the siblings are together or you have peers, friends over, how they would behave in a small group activity with their siblings or peers. Okay? All right. So the first thing about rules is that you teach them. So what does that mean to teach them? It means that you explain it clearly in a way that they can understand. So if you have a younger child and they don't read, or they can't sit and pay attention for a long time, it's going to be really short. You're going to use lots of visuals. So all through all of this training, I'm going to be showing lots of visuals and how to use visuals, and I also have a longer term, hour-long live webinar I'm going to be doing on visuals. So visuals are something that really help kids with autism to pay attention to. It's concrete, it stays there. Our words just disappear when we talk. And we can't say a lot of words because then we lose them. So you want to keep your words to a minimum. You want to keep the visuals there, and they're concrete. So every rule that you're going to have, you're going to need a picture for. and it's going to need to stay concrete and in that location that they need. You're going to do some examples where you model the behavior, have the siblings model the behavior. And then you're also going to do non-examples where you kind of make mistakes and you can make it be funny, you know, but that's the non-example. Is this how we wash our hands? No, that's not how we wash our hands, stuff like that. And then also you're going to do role playing. So then you have them practice after you've modeled, you have them practice it and engage in it. And all of that occurs in time where they're not behaving inappropriately. So you don't take the moment where they're doing something inappropriate and then try to teach a behavior. No, you just have to handle the behavior in that moment, and then you deal with the consequences and then later at a time. So that's what it means to be proactive. We teach ahead of time before they're going to need that behavior, before they behave inappropriately. Okay? So the other thing is that you also teach and try to teach the skill or the behavior in the moment incidentally that they're going to need it. So when you come across a moment where a given rule is going to be needed, or a specific behavior that you want them to engage in, given that they're not behaving inappropriately in the moment, you teach it so that it's in the context and makes sense. And that's as much as possible. I realize that sometimes you can't just, you know, have the moment occur or whatever, but most of the time, you know, you teach. So if you're going to teach dressing, then you would teach dressing in the morning when they actually get dressed, or after bath time, or, you know, when they need to change clothes after they've gotten dirty, or when they're going to put their pajamas on, things like that. And the other thing is that you're going to prioritize the rules that you have, and so that you work on them based on what the child needs most to learn. So the prioritization is individualized to each kid. What are the most difficult skills or behaviors that you're dealing with? Then you prioritize teaching the rules and the appropriate behaviors for those things. So if you have the most difficult time around bath time, you're going to start with bath time rules. If you have the most difficult time around eating, you're going to start with rules around eating and reinforcing, okay? And then gradually you expand to everything that you do so that they get used to having that routine of there's rules for things, I follow them, I get rewards, and you set up all this success in the environment to prevent behaviors and also proactively teach them how to behave so that you can reinforce them all the time. Okay? And remember, rewards are reinforcers, and that means they have to follow the behavior immediately after it occurs, because that's what you want to reinforce, and that's your teaching tool to say, yes, that's correct. Do it again. Okay. One thing I want you to think about is ahead of time, make up your rules into categories that you know you're going to teach. So you would have a sign or, you know, the visuals, the things like that. If they're kids that don't read, then it's just pictures. You can take actual pictures of what the kid is doing in the moment, or you can just download on Google Images any picture you need, and you can put them up. You can put them on a sign. You can arrange them however you want at the kid's level. Make them big enough. If the kid is starting to read, then you want the picture and the words, but keep the words to a minimum, okay? So if I'm going to tell a child it's that we're going to do something and I want to keep the words to the minimum, I take out a lot of words. So I might not say, okay, Johnny, all right, let's go to the bathroom. It's time to work on washing our hands. Or, all right, your hands are dirty. We need to go wash our hands now. I would just say, time to wash hands. Just keep it down to a minimum, because then that actually helps the child focus on what they should actually be doing in the moment. And all those extra words are out of the way. You have the picture and you say, time to wash our hands. And then you go and lead them to the bathroom. Okay, so keep them down to a minimum. Also what you want to keep into mind is if they're little kids, and I say about 0 to 3, then keep it to no more than 2 rules. Try to do the most important rules. If they're 3 to 5, you can have 3 to 4 rules for an activity or a location or something like that. So and have a title with a picture, bath time rules, things like that. The other thing is that you want to teach a new rule every other day. So for 2 days, you're going to work on a new rule. And then the third day, you mix that rule into the other rules that they've learned. Okay. And so that third day, basically, so you've taught a rule on one day, you have a second day that you're working on the rule. And then the third day, mix up all the rules first that they've learned. So you're mixing them up, generalizing, talking about them, you know, making sure that they know them, and then move on to teaching that next new rule. So if they are still struggling with rules that you've made, then you go another day or another day. Maybe a kid can only learn a new rule once a week. Okay, that's okay. You just follow what your child is able to do. But don't try to teach a whole bunch of rules at once, one at a time, and then mix them up, practice them over again before you go on to the new rules so that you kind of keep track of how they're doing. All right, so here's a picture that I have of like a bath time. It just says, wash your hands, brush your teeth, flush the toilet, hang your towel. You can do anything. Those are the biggest things. So if your kid makes a lot of mess, you know, you can say use the trash or whatever you need. But you just have something up in the bathroom. And remember, all of these things are good for all of the siblings. If your kids are of similar age, it's going to help all the kids. If they're not, then they're not going to mind the signs. But you can use this for all the kids at the same time. You don't just have to use it for your child with autism. Okay, here's another one. So this is an example of, I need to put so it's bigger. Make it easier to see. Even if you can't see it, we'll be posting it in the thing. So here's an idea of anything that your child might be really interested in, using that theme for your rules. So this kid was really into firefighters. So it's called Firefighter Bathroom Rules. And then it's a kid dressed up as a firefighter. Brush your teeth, comb hair, flush toilet. Okay, so think about your child developmentally. So if they're 3, hopefully, you know, at this time, if you know that they have autism or that they have even some cognitive delays, you've also been given a little bit of an understanding where they are cognitively. So a 3-year-old who is chronologically, you know, their age in years is 3, but maybe developmentally they're 6 months or 1 year. So you want to think about when you're working on things that they're going to need to learn or understand, you want to think about where they are developmentally, not where they are as their age. So a 6-month developmentally to a 5-year-old developmentally, what we're teaching is that in order to get things that you want, sometimes you got to do things that you don't necessarily like to do or want to do, but you need to do those things in order to get what you want. And that's how we're teaching them about life, typical life. You know, you got to do things to get things you want, but not always. And so one thing we said, 2 words terms that we use are contingent and non-contingent. So contingent means that you have to do something to get something. This thing that you want is contingent on you doing this. Non-contingent means you don't have to do anything to get something. And so you don't have, like a child of your own doesn't have to do anything for you to love them. You love them because they're your child. So giving them affection, giving them kisses and hugs and telling them how much you love them, that can happen anytime as far as, you know, as a non-contingent thing. Now, given you wouldn't do it while they're tantruming on the floor, at that time you just wouldn't give them any attention so that they know that that's not how they get attention. But that's what I mean by non-contingent. So they're going to learn about how sometimes things are contingent. So 6 to 3 months, we're going to start with them starting to understand about delayed reinforcement. So you up until about, you know, in that stage of 6 months to 3 years old developmentally, they really need things pretty immediate, right away, in order to learn that they can get cool things for doing something. And so for a while you do that. Every time they behave appropriately doing something, you might give them an M&M or you give them a high five or you praise them. But then you want to start delaying it. And so we do what's called first then. So it means first you do this and then you do that. So you say that first you're going to go to the bathroom and then you can have a cookie. And so that's kind of what we call the 3D aspect of first then with delaying. You're doing it specific to things that you point to or that are happening in the moment, and you say, you know, first you eat this, and you might point to their sandwich, then you get a cookie. First you give me that book, and then you can have some milk. Or first you sit down, and then I'll give you the Legos. And you use a visual for that. So you have first, then, and you have a picture here under the first of what they need to do first, and then you have a picture of then. And that stays in front of them, right there, whatever they're doing. Okay, so this does mean that you're going to need to go online, just find pictures in Google Images, print them out. Hopefully you've got a printer. Hopefully you have a color printer right now. I know we're stuck at home. Like, I don't have a color printer, so I'm actually using my computer to show you. I just have a black and white computer. And it's going to be something that's tangible, and have Velcro, little pieces of Velcro, or if you don't have Velcro at home right now and you can't get any, just use tape. But you want to be able to remove, you use the board, and then you remove the pictures all the time. So then you point to the pictures at that time and you say, first you do your numbers, and then you get to play with the bouncy balls, okay? And that stays in front of them. They get upset, if they do things, you just ignore it, because you've given them the choice. As soon as they get that done, they can have what they want. So you might even need to walk away, and you just don't give them attention. You don't argue with them. You don't keep talking to them and explaining it. You explain it once or twice calmly, and then it's up to them. And some kids who might have a problem with this, it could take them an hour to get through that, okay? Then we move on to 3 to 4 year olds, okay, developmentally. And what we're looking at is still using a first then board, but now you start adding the rules, okay? So now they understand, first I need to sit and do this, and then I can go play. But when I'm doing this, I need to raise my hand if I want to ask a question, and I actually need to sit and do the work. Or I need to have a quiet mouth, and I need to keep my hands to myself, okay? So now they're not getting rewarded for doing that activity, but while they're doing that activity, they have to be doing these behaviors, okay? So that's the thing where rules come in, is because we want kids to learn, not only do you need to get things done, but here's the behaviors that you need to engage in appropriately in order to receive your rewards. So now they're learning that they need to do a certain task, but it needs to be done with a specific appropriate behavior. Okay, then we have, here's a board that you can have that's permanent if you've got the same rules for the kid. Sit, listen, hands to self. Okay, so this, depending on where they are, for a 3 to 4 year old, you can be at about 3 rules. You've got your first then, and you would just have little piece of Velcro, and then all the things that you know that you would have them doing at home. Okay? Oh, just 1 second. That's my timer. Okay, 3 to 5. All right, here's our 3 to 5. And there's 2 stages for this, where first we do one-to-one reinforcement, okay? And we're starting to give them tokens. So what we're doing is we're pairing a token with the time that they get the reinforcer. So you point again to the rule. Here you go. Here's their rules. They need to sit and do their work. They need to have a quiet mouth, and they need to keep their hands to themselves. And first they do this, and then they get this, and now they're getting tokens. These are little boxes down here for them to earn tokens while they're doing this. And when you give them the token, you tell them what rule they're following. Oh, you're doing such a good job with doing your work with a quiet mouth. Or you're being so quiet, and you give them a token. Okay? So in the first stage, you start off, you give the token, you have these covered up or X'd out or whatever, so that they see they just need 1 token, and then they can move on. So that's how you teach a token has a value, is that when you first give 1 token, they immediately, they take it off, and they trade with you for what they were working for as their big reinforcer. And then once they get that, you work up to 2 tokens, you work up to 3 tokens. okay? And you keep your first then on there during this time because that's what they've learned. First I do this, then I do this. I need these tokens, and each time they get a token, you're sitting so nicely, you're getting your work done, you have your hands to yourself, those sorts of things. And when they earn them, you want them to take the tokens and trade with you. Don't you take the tokens off, because that's how they learn what the token means, is they take it off and they give it to you, because eventually you're going to say you need 5 tokens for this, you need 10 tokens for this, so they need to take them off and they need to trade, because that's how tokens get value and that's how real life is. Okay, so the second stage is that then you take the first then away, okay? And now you're telling them how many tokens they need, and you say you need to earn this amount of tokens while you are quiet, hands to yourself and staying at the table, and then you get, and you point to the reinforcer, 5 minutes on the computer, whatever they're learning, okay? Once again, be sure that they're choosing that reinforcer. It needs to be something they want. You can have choices for them of things they can earn. Like they can earn 5 minutes on the computer, they can earn you reading a book to them, they can watch 10 minutes of a video. You choose what reinforcers are appropriate for them to earn at that time, but you have like 3 or 5 things that they can choose from so that they get to have something that they want. Okay, so here's an example of, here is a caterpillar, and this person, you know, there's 5 spots I'm working on. So since this is a little kid, you would just have one rule, and you put your picture there of what they're working on. They're working for, so this is what they're going to exchange their tokens for. You can have their name there or not. Okay, here's one that I used with the kid. All the tokens are different funny things. He really liked that. He likes animals, colorful things. So here's 10 spots, and all those things had Velcro, and then he gets to play with his trains. Here's another one with the rules on the side: quiet mouth, good looking at me, because if I'm sitting there working with them, good sitting. And here's that was 8 tokens, and right here is what they're working for. Okay, so that's our quick tips about setting up rewards for rules. And be sure to teach rules. Just remember, you have to teach rules. You can't just expect kids to know what to do. All right? Thanks. See you next time.